Well, today's knowledge nugget is about the power of discomfort, not only for ourselves and our personal growth, but also for the magical growth that's going to happen with our teenagers. And the dilemma that we have as parents is sometimes we do everything that we can to save them from the discomfort and pain that we can see that's inevitable. And to not save them from that discomfort would not be love. So, as a loving parent, we try to save them from the very pain that is the fuel to get them to grow. So, let's talk about the power of discomfort. How do we use discomfort to create change and motivate change in our teenagers and in our personal selves? When we think about, maximizing our influence with other people, with our teenagers, I say, well, there's only two ways to motivate us. There is the motivation of the pursuit of something better, or the avoidance of pain and discomfort. And so we are motivated one way or the other, the pursuit of cheese, okay, or the avoidance of the poke, of the stick. But when we look at it more closely, what we're going to see is what motivates us to pursue the cheese, the pain of hunger, and the hope that moving away from the hunger toward the cheese will finally remove the disappointment, the pain, the discomfort that we have from an empty belly. And so, in some ways, the argument could be said that the discomfort is what really drives people into moving forward. I'm going to disagree 100%, okay, because I think there's another piece of love that motivates us. But when we're trying to motivate someone else, unfortunately, the thing that really helps other people become more motivated is discomfort and pain. And when we sabotage people from experiencing the pain, we also sabotage their growth. Here's the paradox of pain. The paradox of discomfort is if I try to avoid discomfort, well, then my discomfort grows. But if I pursue discomfort, my comfort grows. And I used two different categories of life where people literally pay money to increase discomfort. Education. We go to college, we pay money, and we invest time and effort into experiencing the discomfort of being exposed to things that we don't know. And then, before they become ingrained in our brains, we're tested on them. So we're stressed out constantly because we are being forced to experience and try to make sense of information, new information, and that discomfort, okay, the pursuit of that discomfort. If I stay engaged in the discomfort, what once was difficult becomes easy. Same thing with physical fitness. We spend money on a gym membership with all these apparatuses of discomfort so that as we engage in the discomfort, what once was hard becomes easy. But if in any of those situations, whether education or physical fitness, I go, you know what, I want to make life easier for me. I'm not going to expose myself to discomfort. I'm going to minimize it. Well, I don't grow education. I don't grow in my intellectual ability. And if I try to pursue comfort physically, I literally regress in my physical health. Same thing with anxiety, same thing with depression. When you think about therapy, therapy is the strategic exposure of discomfort with the tools and abilities to handle more and more discomfort until what once was impossible becomes easy, or at least copable and livable. So, if that's the case, what's the attitude we should have about discomfort? Well, here's a quote that I think is helpful, and I found this with Viktor E. Frankl, the man who wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning. Between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. When we're experiencing the discomfort and pain, we have to do something. So let's look at that space, the space between stimulus and response. How do we take advantage of that space? How do we use that space to grow? And if we take advantage of it, we do something, we're going to be able to turn that situation that's not too comfortable into a situation where we can have growth. So my suggestion is that instead of us hoping that things will be better and crossing our fingers and thinking that enough time has passed, none of those strategies actually work, that we prepare for the moments where we can predict that our children, ourselves included, but our children are going to be in an uncomfortable situation. Now, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure some of this stuff out. We have done these things over and over and over again. So if you just took pen and paper together and you started to write down, okay, when do I see my son or daughter become agitated, frustrated, angry, okay? Those are the situations where they're feeling discomfort. So let's look at some of those situations. Discouragement, when they think there's nothing more they can do to fix their situation. Frustration, when their efforts to create a certain outcome don't work. So you can see how frustration, if I'm trying to change the situation and I keep doing that over and over again, my frustration, I'm going to become discouraged. Now, its close cousin is disappointment. Disappointment doesn't really rely on our efforts to get a certain outcome. This comes from some of the entitlements or just some of the hopes. I was hoping that blank would happen, and instead of it happening, something that I didn't want to have happen happened. And so I'm really disappointed. This can be in the situation where, let's say, they're reaching a limit or a curfew. Okay, they want a certain thing, and they're hoping to give themselves permission to hope for it, even expect it. And when that thing doesn't happen, they become disappointed. And that's uncomfortable for them. They don't like that. Okay? Any kind of limitations that we put, any consequences that we issue, for the most part, create greater discomfort. And why do we do that? Because we believe that discomfort is going to help them grow. That's why we put consequences. It's our job as parents to do everything we can to train our teenagers to reach greater success when they leave the home. And that means prepare them by getting them familiar with the natural consequences that happen in real life. And since there's so much of a buffer between the natural consequences the decisions that they make and the natural consequences that should happen, as parents, we create consequences sometimes to start to get them familiar with the idea that if you make a certain decision, you get an outcome that ain't so positive and pleasant. Okay, so when they are in that discomfort, they're going to express that discomfort. Now, there's two major ways. There's more, but there's two major ways that we can predict that they're going to communicate that discomfort. That is either going to be a declaration, okay, a statement about themselves or the situation. I, we, this, that. What? This is ridiculous. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done. I'm sick of this. Stop. Be quiet. Okay, those declarations are a statement of their discomfort and pain. Another statement that they might make is a criticism, because these declarations usually go hand in hand with the criticism. If I say something like, this is ridiculous, you're retarded, you're an idiot, your rules are stupid, you lied to me, you set me up, you want me to fail. So those types of statements kind of go hand in hand with the declarations. So what they're doing is they're using declarations and criticisms to see if someone will save them. Right now, they are a helpless victim in the situation. And so these declarations and criticisms are a cry for help, avoiding the accountability of creating change. Okay? What do we usually do as parents? Okay. When we see our kids crying out for help and they're uncomfortable, Well, we don't want them to go through the discomfort. We want to help. We want them to feel better. Because in that moment, we literally forget that this is a positive moment. This is a wonderful thing. We think, this is painful for me as a parent. You know, at the beginning, I said that the discomfort is something that helps our teenagers grow, but also us grow. While we prepare for the situations where our kids are in an uncomfortable situation, we are simultaneously helping us deal with the discomfort of the situation of having to do something or respond to our teenagers who are crying for help and avoiding accountability at the same time. What do we normally do? We tell them what they need to do to fix it. We give them unsolicited advice. Well, what you need to do, or what you should have done, next time what you should do is, okay? We explain to them how they should fix it or avoid it in the future. Another thing that we do is we explain things. We explain why we do what we do. We're like defending what our behavior is in the situation that they're at. So if they're frustrated with a consequence, what do we normally do? We explain, well, we had these, we set up these issues, we set up these expectations at the beginning. We had agreed upon these consequences, and I'm just doing my best to help. Do they go, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I'm glad that you reminded me of that, because for a second, I was actually, going to play the victim role. No, they don't do that. Okay? So that's another thing that we get sucked into, is trying to defend ourselves and explain what's going on or explain the situation, because we think that if we explain it to them, then they'll understand. They won't be so uncomfortable, so frustrated, so disappointed. And sometimes we just try to fix it for them. We save them. For example, let's say a teenager's upset and frustrated because they forgot and they left their lunch at home. And what do? We sometimes will bring them lunch, or we'll Venmo them some money so they can go out to lunch, because we don't want them to be uncomfortable or frustrated. And why? In some cases, we don't like the discomfort of how they handled their discomfort. And so we do these strategies to avoid the discomfort in those situations, trying to help our kids avoid the discomfort in their situation. And when we do those things, we prevent growth. All right, so what should we do? Thanks, Emil. You pointed out the obvious. Now what do we do? Since we know that pain and discomfort is the great motivator, it is the fuel that moves people, we need to remember that the attitude is we are celebrating that they are in discomfort, because now there's an opportunity for growth. So here are some suggestions. When they make declarations, especially when they're making declarations and criticisms, we just use the communication tools. Remember, if they make a declaration, we're just going to understand the crap out of them. We're just going to understand their frustration. We don't have to solve it. It's not our problem to solve. We don't have to fix anything. We don't have to tell them what to do. In fact, we relish the moment when they're in discomfort. And so we understand them, okay? Like we capture their emotions, we connect it to what they experience. We don't try to fix it, we don't give advice. Gosh, that's gotta be really frustrating. Here you are, you're getting ready for school, you pack everything up, and then you go and you forget your lunch. Oh, that's frustrating, that's annoying, and you're probably starving. Man, that sucks. That's all we do. Because as soon as we start to give advice, offer solutions, we inadvertently tell them that they are incompetent and can't do it. And what does that do? That perpetuates their helplessness and their neediness. Okay, number 2. I kind of was hinting at that already. Put them in charge of the solutions. Put them in charge of it. We don't have to be it. So after we understand the crap out of them, okay, and they've said their criticisms, and their criticisms are trying to blame you for the situation. You should have reminded me. You should have reminded me to bring my lunch. When we get those criticisms, we agree with the element of truth. Is it true that it's our responsibility to remind them to bring their lunch? No. So if there's zero truth, we just say, what do you mean? Why would you say that I'm supposed to remind you? Well, you're my mom. Well, that's a criticism that is 100% true. So you'd say, that part's true. I agree. I am your mom. So what does that have to do with my responsibility to remind you? Well, how am I supposed to? And that's the question. And if that's the question, that's great. Then we're already moving toward the solutions. Okay, so they got declarations and criticisms when they declare their victimness of the situation. And so after we understand the crap at them, we do number 2, which is we put them in charge of the solutions. So after they're stuck and they don't know what to say anymore because you haven't tried to save them and they're confused on what to do, then you just ask them, so what are you going to do? How are you going to handle that? So what's the next step? And so by us asking them what they're going to do, we send them the message that we have confidence in their ability to fix it. And so they might panic and go, why? There's nothing I can do. Well, then that goes right back to number 1. You sound really frustrated. You sound really hopeless. You feel like there's nothing can change. And that may or may not be the case, right? And so you put them, so what are you going to do? Or maybe there's nothing they can do to have lunch right then and there. But what can they do? Well, maybe they can decide if they want to make it a higher priority to remember to bring their lunch the next time. After we start to put them in charge of the solutions, we have tons and tons of ideas, all right? So after they have exhausted their strategies and they might need some extra help, we can ask them, do you want some more ideas? Do you want to explore some more strategies on how to get out of the situation? Now, you might even make a deal with them. Well, I still need some things done when you get home. And so if you can do X, Y, and Z, I can Venmo you some money so you can do that. And you can earn some money. What do you want to do? Now, do that if they're trustworthy. So there's other strategies, and they're only limited to their imagination. In the process of them coming up with solutions, when they come up with something good, the third thing we can do is really support and encourage their problem-solving skills. If they come up with a good solution, that's a really good solution. You came up with some really good ideas. Yeah. And even make general statements. You know what? The way you think, you're going to make it. Because you're able to come up with strategies and solutions that I didn't even think about. You're going to be fine. I shouldn't be worried so much. And so as they come up with solutions, then they're going to experience a positive dopamine hit where they start to feel like, you know what? I can solve problems. And so what once was this desperate cry for help as a victim of the situation, what we can literally do is turn that discomfort, that moment of panic and despair, into a situation where they are empowered and strengthened and have momentum in solving their problems on their own. And so next time there's a situation where your kid's frustrated, disappointed, discomfortable, what we're going to do, we're going to celebrate it. We're going to embrace it. And instead of trying to save them from that, we're going to empower them. And so that's how you deal with discomfort and turn that discomfort into growth.